Yeah, I got into a situation with a bunch of guys, and they shot me. And then, as they thought I was dead, I shot the guy that shot me.
What was the situation you got into?
I can't have to mention names on it.
Okay, yeah, we don't want to do that. No,
It's
no.
mob associated.
And did you have to go to court for that one?
No, no.
Okay. All right.
I called it in. I was in
right.
Brooklyn. I called it in. They came. They took me down. They brought me to the hospital. Then when they realized the guy that was shot, they thanked me.
And have you been shot?
I was shot so far 6 times, stabbed, my throat slit, as we know, and thrown out a window. And I'm here.
What? What was the story about you getting thrown out the window?
I have another problem. They thought most people don't like me, especially mob guys, because I'm really not a mob guy. I'm not connected to anybody. I was taken in by Frank Costello during the Kennedy elections and all that. I was traveling the world handing out envelopes to Carlos Basales, Corky Sabella, while they were trying to, stimulate people backing John F. Kennedy, Senator John F. Kennedy, to become president. And nobody thought a Catholic president would have become Catholic president. Then I took my last trip with a suitcase to Dallas. Somebody picked me up and took me about 80 miles out to a ranch. And I got back in the car and flew home. And 2 days later, Lyndon Baines Johnson announced he's the running mate to John F. Kennedy because they needed Texas in the South. It was wild.
Do you have a theory on who killed Kennedy?
I'll tell you who killed him. It wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. It was Johnny Roselli, Chicago shooter. They had 3 shooters. New York wanted a shooter. New Orleans wanted a shooter because they weren't going to count on somebody. And Chicago had Johnny Roselli. Johnny Roselli, and I don't know if you know these names, and Santo Trapacante were brought in by the CIA. They were training them to kill Fidel Castro. Because most people don't know the deal the mob made with Joe Kennedy, if his son became president, they would invade Cuba and they would get their casinos back. The mistake John made was make his brother Bobby attorney general. He hated the mob. He hated all his father's friends, but they didn't know that. And the mob was getting really out of patience of when they're going to invade. So they were coming up with these theories to take him out, and then Batista would give them back all their properties. But that was already a year or 2 in, and that's when my last meeting with Marilyn Monroe, which was a close friend of mine for 4 years, I was at Cal Neva as the eyes and ears for Frank Costello with Sam Giancana. Sinatra was there. They brought Marilyn in. Robert showed up. John didn't. He was supposed to because they knew they were having it. And Joe, the old man, Kennedy, already had a stroke because they sent a message. We're going to start killing off your sons if you don't invade Cuba. Get your younger son straightened out. So what Sam Giancana's theory was, like they did with J. Edgar Hoover, they were going to blackmail him. They set up J. Edgar Hoover years ago as a cross-dresser, and they had all the film on it. So they all had a fancy for Marilyn Monroe. John promised Marilyn that if he became president, he was going to leave Jackie, that's how naive she was, and marry her. So Bobby was consoling her. I don't know if the world knows this. As Bobby was consoling her, he impregnated her and convinced her to get an abortion. So when Sinatra said, you got to do us one more favor, your room is set up with cameras, induce Robert to come tonight. So we have him. Now here's a Catholic boy. I think he had 6 or 7 kids already, attorney general. They would have him. She went screaming. I will never see those guys again. They destroyed me because we didn't know that she was emotionally deranged after getting an abortion. So I'm going to the press. I'm telling them, I'm going to disgrace these guys. They're done. And we knew once she said that, she left. She called Joe DiMaggio, because I'm close to her. She called Joe DiMaggio, who was in San Francisco. And most people don't know Cal Neva is on the borderline of California and Nevada. That's how it's got its name. So you can enter on the California side, and most people didn't know you were there. And they had all these cabins all around. She calls Joe. Joe calls Sinatra. He said, what's going on? She wants me to come and get her. He's mind your own business. Don't come. Because what the world didn't know, Sam Giancana gave Sinatra 30 days to get this straightened out, or they're going to kill him too. Because he said he could control JFK. And obviously he didn't. Well, he controlled JFK, but not Bobby. Bobby was getting everybody locked up. But Johnny Rosselli was the guy in the sewer, trained by the CIA as a marksman. That's why, until they did all, I mean, forget the Warren report, that was a Chicago guy. Eli Warren was their guy. When they did a scientific thing with all this magic they can do, you'd have to have a pilot on that bullet to hit all those people. But the kill shot went into his forehead and blew out his back of his head. That was on Jackie in the back of the car. And that came out of the storm sewer, the range of it and all. But then years later, when they found out Johnny Rosselli after this stuff, they had an indictment for Johnny Rosselli, and they found him chopped up in a barrel, a 50-gallon drum in Miami.
I mean, who put the guy up to take Oswald out?
Oh, that was easy, because he was running all the stuff in Texas for them, all their porno places, all their casinos. So Jack Ruby, they said, Jack, you'll be a hero. We're going to get you in the cell downstairs in the chambers when they transfer him, and you shoot him. And they said you did it. And then, you know, what most people don't know, including Dorothy Kilgallen, which is still an open case in New York, 72 people were assassinated after Kennedy. Anybody that had anything to do with it. I was on the list. I was number 73. And Frank Costello got me out of there till this all calmed down. Because not that I was a messenger. I mean, when I was on the ship, he put me on a ship that morning, November 22nd. And he gave me $15,000 cash. And he said, go to Layton's, buy a wardrobe, because you're going to have dinner for 5 nights with the captain at the captain's table. I didn't never been on a ship. I didn't know that was a big deal. So the first night I'm sitting at the table, I'll tell you this, it's not in my book. Grace Kelly was there with the 2 kids going back. I met Grace Kelly when she was at the Barbizon on 63rd and Lexington, which was a monitored ladies' hotel, and the curfew was 9 o'clock at night. Well, at 9:15, Costello and Walter Winchell, these guys, would send me over with an envelope for the floor monitor, and they'd bring me a couple of girls. Always Grace Kelly, because she wanted to meet all these guys. They were, you know, expiring actresses. Audrey Hepburn. So when she became, you know, Princess Monaco, I was always going with Sinatra for the Red Cross Ball and all that. And it was a crazy time in my life. I couldn't believe it. So now I'm having dinner with her on the ship. And it was like a morgue. Because, you know, the president was shot. All kinds of tugboats were pulling up to the ship as we went under the Verrazano Bridge. And most of the businessmen were getting off. And they didn't even say he was dead yet. They said he was shot. Then at night, they announced it. And it was funny because the next morning, when we get the Telex newspaper on the ship, I see Lee Harvey Oswald's picture. Well, I saw Lee Harvey Oswald with Carlos Marcellus in New Orleans. That night I went down there. And then I see Jack Ruby. I'm saying, Jack Ruby shot him? He was a bum, this guy. He was a mob guy. They sent him to Texas to run all this stuff. But they got him. They got them all.
Do you think LBJ greenlit the operation?
Oh, no, definitely. Because he was the backup with the Texas Rangers. He was the one who brought him to the target. See, the deal they made with him, they said John will be in for 8 years, like they did with Nixon. They had Nixon, they had Truman. The mob had them guys. They said he'll be in for 8 years, and then you'll be in for 8 years. That's why he went along with it. But then they were not getting their way with it. They brought him in and said, you know, they want to do something with this, and you control Texas, and he made this whole situation happen.
Do you think if Kennedy's dad hadn't had a stroke, things would have turned out differently?
I don't know that, because Bobby was the rock in their shoe. Bobby wouldn't listen to any of them. He told them, I'm not listening to you guys. He didn't even like what John stood for. Being the president, he wanted to be this righteous, he's trying to build this whole legacy of the Kennedys. And he really was a righteous kid. I mean, and he was the only one, he was the last boy. He witnessed the abuse Rose got from Joe. Joe, when these boys were 16, having a birthday party in their house, he would have a hooker, or who, or whatever you want to call him, come to the house and make my boy a man at his 16th birthday. In their house. I mean, this guy was nuts. He had a frontal lobotomy on his daughter because she used to have these fits. I mean, this guy was nuts. Tough guy. And how I got so close to him, because Costello and him were partners in bootlegging days. They amassed $30 million each in the 30s during Prohibition. I'm living in one of Costello's houses right now. Where I am right now. I walked in here when I was 13 years old. One night, on a rainy night, he said, "You're not going downtown tonight." I said, "Why?" He said, "Go to 223. We never used the streets. We used the address on the street." And he threw me the keys, 223. He said, "Just be out of there by 9 o'clock in the morning," because it was a horse room. They had 24 sports riders in there. It was a wire room. Then as time went on, I got a piece of this. I got 6 units in here. My dining room sits 16.
Wow.
I have an 8-stool bar and nightclub, 5 bedrooms, a step-down living room, and I'm right off of Park Avenue.
Wow.